ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। ॐ गणानां त्वा गणपतिगं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम्। ॐ श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। Okay, welcome everyone, those on Zoom and also on Clubhouse. So we are starting this class on the Nyaya Sutras. This is the 20th class that we have done so far. We are doing the 20th now. So in the last class, if those of you attended, those will remember, we were talking about how the different pramanas, the different means of knowledge are there, and there were doubts raised on them. And then in the last section, we were discussing about 4 additional means pramanas, which we saw in the section of the second part of the book, second part. So there it was seen that the another 4 pramanas were mentioned, but there by logic it was proved that they all can be included in the first 4 only, right? So the first 4, if you remember, was you have Shabda Praman, you have Pratyaksh, Anuman, and Pratyaksh, Anuman, Shabd, and Upman. So out of these 4 pramanas, those 4 means of knowledge, Arthapatti, then Sambhav and Abhav. These 4 were mentioned, but these 4 were then shown to be included. Asteya was shown to be included in the first, in the Shabda Praman itself, and the next 3, Arthapatti, Abhav, and Sambhav, were shown to be included within Anuman Praman itself. So this we covered till the 12th verse, and then in the 12th verse we start a new topic where it is shown how what is the understanding, what do you mean by the existence and non-existence, prag utpatti and pragabhav. Those 2 terms were discussed in the 12th verse. So prag utpatti was that when anything is produced like a pot, then before it is produced, then there is a non-existence of that object before it was produced. Prag utpattehe abhav. Prag utpatti abhav. So before that pot is produced, before that it is non-existent. So whenever anything that we see in the world, everything we see has a definite time frame, a time of existence, a time of manifestation, we rather say. जब वो प्रकट होती है. So when it appears in this world, then that is called the point of utpatti, the point of being birth, being born. So that object was non-existent. Then similarly, there is an abhav after also. So after being destroyed, that is also there is a abhav. So
are you fed up of expensive flight tickets? Don't worry, Ease My Trip has your back. Use coupon code EMTNCS and book your flight tickets with no convenience fee. Ease My Trip ensures your travel costs are transparent.
So Pragabhav and Pradvansabhav. Pradvansabhav is the second kind, where after destruction that object ceases to exist. So these 2 terms we brought in here because they will be used in this next coming section, where they will be used to understand the nature of sound. The sound, whether it is eternal or not. शब्द जो है वो नित्य है या अनित्य है. It is one of the most hotly debated topics in Indian logical systems, in Nyaya as well as other systems. Some of them hold Shabda to be eternal, some hold it to be non-eternal. Nyaya goes to the root of the problem. It shows in what sense it can be considered eternal and in what sense it can be considered non-eternal. It considers both so that there is clarity on the विजन समझ आए क्लियरली कि वो किस तरह से नित्य है. सो बिफोर वी डेल्व इनटू इट, आई हैड at the end of the last class also gone into the topic of nityam. What is eternal? What is the definition of eternal? So basically there are two kinds of eternal. One is the soul reality, Brahman, the highest reality. That reality is what we call transcendental. It is beyond this manifest plane. वो यहाँ पे दिखती नहीं है, वो यहाँ पे अनुभव में हम नहीं लेके आ सकते. It is not an object. It is the subject itself. It is me itself. And so that subject cannot be ever an experience, right? The experiencer can never be experienced. That is Nirgun Nirakar Brahman. So that Nirgun Nirakar is Nitya. So there the term that we use for Nitya is unchanging. It is never changing. Or we use another term there which is used in lot of other places. We call it Kutastha. Kutastha is where the definition of that object that never changes. What is Kutastha? Koot is basically when a lohar, a hammersmith, an ironsmith, when he hammers something, then he has an anvil. That anvil is called koot. It is a solid piece of iron on which he takes the object that has to be shaped and then he starts beating it up into shape. So the object that is placed on the anvil, that will change shape. That will take whatever shape the lohar, that ironsmith wants to take. But the anvil itself will not undergo any change. So similarly, in that sense, that is the ultimate reality being Nityam, being changeless. So changelessness is there the essential nature that has to be attributed for something to be called Nityam. So that is Nityam and everything else is Anityam. So if we use in the words of Shankaracharya, Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya. So everything in this world that you experience is Anitya. But in a sense, there is a Nityatvam, there is an eternality about other things also here. What is that Nityatvam? We have another name for that. We have a different term for that. What is that Nityam? That is called Pravahi Nityam. The eternality of flow. The eternality of flow. कोई चीज प्रवाह में नित्य है, मतलब वो हमेशा रहती है, but it just goes into manifestation and then out of manifestation. प्रकट होती है और फिर चली जाती है. So that is the nature of eternal things in the world. So if we take the basic unit, if we take the terms of Vaisheshik, which is very closely allied to Nyaya. So these two thought systems or these two systems of philosophy are very close. So in there, we can clearly see the term that is used is Parmanu, the smallest possible particle, which actually remains in the unmanifest plane, and then it becomes manifest when a vibration is imparted to that Parmanu. With vibration, it gains mass and it gains area or space or size or shape. So in that way, there is a Pravahi Nityam. All the things that we see in the world, when you merge them back into their cause, then that cause itself remains eternal because it goes back to the unmanifest state. So that unmanifest state is where it is Nitya. So this is what will be used to for us to understand this topic here. That whenever we are talking about an object that is Nitya, then it is Nitya in the sense that it is in the unmanifest state. That is the basic system that Nyaya will follow when we are talking about Shabda. So if we take Shabda, which is the main thing that will be investigated in the next almost 40 verses, but in the next 10 verses, the main topic will be covered. After that, there are further questions, counter questions, just like we saw in the case of the means of knowledge, pramana. तो जैसे हमने देखा कैसे knowledge होती है प्रमाण के थ्रू, as some instrument of knowledge or some source of knowledge. So how is that knowledge achieved? That is described, or that a definition is given. Then that definition is examined, right? And then later on, the objections are enumerated for that in the next chapter. So there, then again, all those objections are also answered, right? So if I explain a topic clearly, I have to give all the different logical reasoning behind the topic that I'm explaining. But there may be some student or some person who will feel it is not right, who will feel it is not, the explanation is not adequate. So that explanation will then later on be converted into a question answer session. So the Guru Shishya Parampara in our system is always like that. The teacher will give the teaching. That time no one can disturb. The teacher will keep on speaking. He will give the full format, and then at the end, the student can ask the question, and then the teacher can clear those doubts. So it is structured in such a way that today, if a student is studying, then he need not ask those questions by those students earlier on. So that is how it works in the Vedic system, or all our Puranic or old study systems. Right. So let's get back to let's start with the first verse then of this session. We'll just move on to the first verse. So this is the one that we covered. Prag utpattehe abhav utpattehe cha. So this one is about the pragabhav and pradvansabhav. This one we did, and this next one also we read, but we'll just recap. So what does this say? Vimarsh. This is 2:113. If you're seeing on the screen, the number 3 is there. Maybe something got missed out. So this is the 13th verse. And again, this is the second chapter. Sorry. So again, here the numbering is a bit wrong, but you can. It is 2:13. Second chapter, part 2, 13th verse. So what does this say? Vimarsh hetva anuyoge cha vipratipattehe sanshaya. So if you split it up, vimarsh hetu anuyoge cha vipratipattehe sanshaya. So what he's telling, there is a doubt, right? Here sound is not mentioned, mind you. If you're looking at this whole sutra, sound is not mentioned. What does it say? Vimarsh hetu. When you are talking about a conflicting, vimarsh is, vichar is a thought. Vimarsh is an opposing thought, something that you give that can cut your reasoning. Right? So there is a conflict there, right? So vimarsh ka hetu, the cause of a conflict. What can be the cause of the conflict? That there is some kind of variation. There are some kind of conflicting opinions. Vipratipatti. There is a conflicting opinion regarding a particular subject. Here the subject is not mentioned. Sound is not mentioned. So here it is saying there is doubt about dash dash dash, because there are conflicting opinions supported by conflicting reasons. But what is that dash dash dash? Here it is written nature of sound. Where does it come from? In the next few verses, sound is clearly mentioned. Right? So that is the structure of the sutras. Sometimes a word need not be mentioned. You can discover it in the later verses, or sometimes it was there in the previous verses and you are carrying forward, right? So it works both ways. So what is it saying? Vimarsh hetu anuyoge cha vipratipattehe sanshaya. So there may be sanshaya, there may be some doubt about what? About the nature of sound. Why? Because vimarsh hetu, because there are conflicting reasons brought about by what? Vipratipatti, conflicting opinions. There are different people will have different opinions. So regarding sound, as I said, in fact, there is if you read this more about this, then you will see that there is a full, what we call a scientific discipline, which is called Spotavada, which discusses totally on sound. Spotavada of Om, the eternal sound, and all the sounds produced from it. All that is the topic of Spotavada. So in Nyaya, it covers this in a small section, but still it is quite detailed. So you can get most of the arguments that you have there in Nyaya. So what are these doubts? These will be enumerated in the next sutra. So let us have a look. So, so we say this is the opinion of Nyaya. Say this is the 2 to 14 verse of the section. Indriyatvat, Kritikatvat, and Upachara, Adimatvat, because it has a beginning. And Indriyakatvat, because it is perceived by the sense organs, it is cognized by your sense organs. And Kritakavat Upacharacha, because it is manufactured, it is made, it is produced from the union of two things. So because of that, sound is not eternal. So here Nyaya gives its opinion. Because of these three reasons, we cannot consider something that is sound as to be eternal. So what are these three? Adimatva. So because it has a beginning, so anything that has a beginning will definitely have an end. That is the logical certainty, right? If you remember, I gave you all of these rules in the when we did Tattvabodh and Atmabodh. Then I gave you all these rules of logic, right? So all these rules of logic, that there were about 25, 26 rules that we did. They are used to prove that when an argument is being given, the reasoning behind that. And so all these rules have to be learned by us. So even if you don't remember, in Nyaya, it will be repeated. And not just repeated, you will get more reasoning behind those laws, right? So one of that is whatever has a beginning has an end, right? जिसका भी आदि है उसका अंत भी होगा. So that is the natural thing we observe in the universe. Whenever we experience anything in the universe, we can easily see that anything that has a beginning has an end. You can search for all the objects of the universe. You can search for all the elements. Even the elements are right. Even though we now see that element is eternal. So when we say Akash, Agni, Vayu, they seem to be eternal. But there is what we call a Shabda Pramanam. There is a Shabda Pramanam. There is the proof that is given in the Shastras. Right? So that Shastra says at the end, at when there is Pralayam, the whole universe is merged back into source, then that Akash also will merge back into its own source. What is the source for that? Yeah, there are intermediate stages, but finally it is Prakriti, right? It merges back into Prakriti. And then finally Prakriti is what? Prakriti is the power of Brahman. It's the Shakti of Brahman, right? Prakriti us Brahma ki Shakti hai. So Prakriti also will finally merge back into the holder of that Prakriti, which is Brahman. So in this way, Akash also is considered to be not eternal, right? So this Akash, even though it is an element to our experience, it appears eternal. But when we go further into the Shastram, then Shastram will say, no, if you look at it logically also, what will happen in this universe? This universe is expanding, right? This universe is expanding and expanding. So what will happen in this expanding universe? All of this matter that you see is slowly disappearing. It is reducing. It is being converted. If you look at today's science, then it is converted through black holes back into dark matter. So dark matter is increasing. What is this dark matter? Basically, we say it is space only. So at one time, all the remaining four tattvas will merge into space. So only space will remain. So when only space will remain, then can you differentiate whether there is one space or two space or a big space or a small space? No, because for determining the size or motion of anything, you have to have two things. So you don't have a reference point. So that is Pralayam. Pralayam when there is no reference point, right? So this whole universe will merge back into space, right? So in this way, that also is that also has a Adi or Ant. Everything has a Adi or Ant, a beginning or end. So in this universe, whatever we see will have a beginning or an end. And because of that, Nyaya, what does Nyaya say? Because it has a beginning, it will definitely have an end. Because sound, how does sound get produced? Whenever we utter through our mouth, right? So even if we accept, we will see to that later, even if we accept that sound is has an eternal feature that you can say that it is unmanifest, right? So even if it has an unmanifest feature, we will come to that logic later on. Still, during that time it is produced, that sound, that that produced sound, the sound that you hear through your ears, it has a shelf life. It has a time when it will appear, and then slowly it will also disappear. You cannot reproduce that very same sound again, right? Just like you cannot reproduce any object in this universe. It might be similar, but never will be. It will be the same. So in this way, anything that is eternal, anything that has a beginning will have an end. So adimatvat. So that is the first and the most important word. That why is sound considered non-eternal? Why is it said that it is not nityam? Because it is adimatvat. It has a beginning, and so it will have an end. So anything that has a beginning will have an end. That is one of the rules we saw in the Vedanta logic also. So Vedanta does not have a separate logic of itself. It uses all these terms borrowed from mostly from Nyaya, some from Vaisheshik, and so on, right? So we all are scientific systems, all are philosophical systems. They are intertwined. They are not fighting with each other. They are all saying the same things. Only they are exploring different phases of that reality, right? So Nyaya is basically exploring logic. Vaisheshik is exploring the micro nature of matter, and so on. So which I've told you all multiple times. So in this way, when we are looking at sound here, then what is the next one? Indriyakatvat. Whatever is cognized or recognized or known by our sense organs, that will also have not be nitya. So if you remember from Vedanta, the drashta is nityam, drishya is always anityam. The seer is always eternal. The seer is the subject, and the object will always be anityam. So anything that we see through our sense organs, that again is a very clear from our experience also, that whenever whatever we experience through our sense organs, that all those are objects, and those objects all have a shelf life. So Nyaya is saying Indriyakatvat also, because it is cognized by the sense organs, sound is also not eternal, right? So that is the second point. And then in the third point, what does the third point say? Kritakavat upachara. Kritakavat upachara. So because it is produced. So when this sound, how does it produce? Can you produce sound? If you do that, it will not be a what we call a shabda. It will just be a noise. You can say maximum. So, but actually also there is a production happening in your throat, right? So any part of your mouth through movement only, it is able to produce sound. So sound is always produced. It is a product of some kind of action, some kind of vibration, right? So all the things that we see in the universe, we say, are all that we see are the ones that have shape. सब में आकार है. आकार व्यंगिका जाति. So what is jati? Jati is the general characteristic of an object, and that general characteristic can come about through akar vyangika, through only akar, because anything has a shape. So because that shape is there, it can be cognized, or it becomes manifest, or it becomes visible. So that akar has to be understood as coming from what? Coming from action. No akar is produced on its own, through action only. If there is a pot, it is just plain mud, and when the water gives shape to it, then we say it has gained the akar of a pot, and so it has been created or made through some kind of action. Similarly, all of the objects of the world, all of the parmanus that are there in the unmanifest state, when they are given that vibration, they are imparted that action by the eternal sound, then they also become manifest. So that is the understanding of, if we see Vaisheshika, there it is clearly given the whole logical sequence of that. So Kritakavat upachara cha. So because we can introduce an element of manufacture, an element of creation into that, so that is why we can say that sound is also non-eternal, right? So this is the position of Nyaya. So already all these three have been covered clearly, but always there can be some kind of doubt. So these doubts, as I said, the author introduces himself, but you can say it is what we call a purva paksha, a doubt created by the opposition, right? So in this doubt, the next session comes about. So as you can see clearly, what is this process of doubt? So the process of doubt, is anyone asking something? Okay. So what is the process of what we call the process of enquiry in Veda? In our Vedic sense, we say we follow the threefold process which I have enumerated earlier also. So we have yukti, shruti, yukti, anubhuti. So shruti is the main always. Shruti is always the main method of discovering those truths which are not observed by the normal inference, normal observation, right? So shruti goes beyond the sense organ. So shruti is the first thing. So anything about when we are talking about a topic that is not known to us through direct understanding, for that we refer to shruti, right? And then after that is the yukti. Then we apply logic to that. We apply logic and see what is the shruti saying. Is it correct? Is it logically possible? And then if it agrees, then we say yes, okay, shruti, we can accept. You are saying what you are saying is right. And then finally anubhuti. It should also be possible for me to experience that. It should become my experience. It should become what is my own experience also. So that is how we proceed. We do not accept any kind of logic that any person gives and then accept it as true. It has to be there coming from Shruti, then only it be accepted. Otherwise, if it is there, there are some things that will appear in my anubhuti. There are some things that will appear in according to yukti, but actually they are not right. So you can see in the worldly experience also, the sun is going around the earth. You will see that every day. But someone will tell you with yukti, no, you are wrong. Sun is not going around the earth. It is the earth which is rotating, right? So when you understand the logic behind that, when you understand through the relative movement of other planets, to the stars and all, you can understand, yes, it's right. But will your anubhuti change? Your anubhuti will never change. It will remain there. You will still see the sun rise in the east and set in the west. So that is why we use always Shruti in that sense. So here the Yukti, Shruti always they have taken earlier about the nature of sound. So here when we see this, the logic is being analyzed. So the first part is the logic is been given that sound is non-eternal. So can we doubt that? For that we go into the next verse. We did the 14th. So this is second chapter, part 2, 15 verse. So 2 to 15. So what does it say? Na ghata bhav samanya nitya anityeshu api nityavat upcharacha. So he says that some will not accept this argument because non-existence of a jar and the genus of it are eternal, and eternal things are also spoken of as if they were artificial, right? So there are 3 points here to be understood. 3 things here to be understood. That he is saying, firstly, you have said that sound is non-eternal, right? So that is your position according to Nyaya. So he says that there is a possibility. You said the first reason that you gave is it has a beginning, right? So he says ghata bhav. Ghata bhav can also be nitya. So what is ghata bhav and how can it be nitya? There is a ghata, there is a pot, right? So because there is a pot, so he's saying na ghata bhav. So then what is a pot? Then pot is something that is a concept that we can see the existence of a pot, and when it is not there, then it is gone out of existence. When it is broken, then that pot is not a non-existent. Simple, understood? So there is a term called non-existence of a pot. So he is saying what? That non-existence is nityam. the non-existence of the pot is nityam. From today, when the pot is destroyed, the pot will not be available to you from here till eternity. So the existence of the pot has an end, but the non-existence of the pot is eternal. Is this clear? Is this a bit of a
You mean
rough?
before it was created, the pot, the non-existence was there. When it is broken, even then the non-existence is there.
Yeah. So in both of these, you can see that before, during the time of the existence of the pot is there. But before that, its existence is eternal, nitya, in backwards in time. And after destruction, its non-existence is there eternally into the future. So basically, what he's saying is that
during the period of that existence of that pot,
no, he's not talking about the existence of the pot. He's talking about the ghatabhav. He's talking about the abhava of the pot. He's talking about the non-existence of the pot. Existence of the pot, or you can say the manifestation of the pot, is temporary. No, he has no problem with that. He's saying the non-existence of the pot can also be anityam. It can be nityam. So non-existence is nityam. So how are you saying that something that has a beginning cannot have an end? Will always have an end, because the ending of the destruction of the pot is the beginning of its non-existence. Do you understand? The destruction of the pot is the beginning of the non-existence of the pot. So if you are it will forever be non-existent. Right? So ghatabhav, it is something that has been destroyed. Of begins, its non-existence begins, and that non-existence, he says, right, that is the first part. Then the second one. So, which is the next one? Na ghatabhav, there's samanya, right? Samanya is always there. What is samanya now? What is samanya? So there is a pot. So pot you are seeing, that is always available to there. Then there is what we call a pot nest. Ghatatva, Hindi mein bolte hai, Sanskrit mein ghatatva. So that potness is the nature of the pot, the shape of the pot, the size of that pot. That potness or that ghatatvam, we say, it is always there in the unmanifest plane. Always there. It may not appear in front of you, and it will always be there later also. So that ghatatva or that samanya, there is something called vishesha and there is something called samanya, right? So samanya and vishesha are two aspects of one object only, always, right? So one object will always have a time of manifestation. जब वो प्रकट हो रहा है, जब वो दिख रहा है, that is its vishesha, when it has taken some shape. But there is a commonality, what we call potentiality. Potentially, it always exists. It has the possibility to exist. Then someone needs to come forward and create that out of the elements. So that is what is called vishesha. But before that, it is samanya. So that samanya, that ghatatvam, that potness, you can say, that potness is always there. So potness, or what we call potness, is also, he says, is eternal. Right? So that also is his second point. Ghatatvam is eternal. So these will be debated later on. I hope it's not too complicated. Anyone finding some problem with that? Because this is totally new. I'm not bringing anything from previous classes. Okay. Okay. I'll continue on the assumption that there is. Vibhav, you want to ask something? Okay. Okay. So that potness is, as we said, he's saying potness is nitya. Then what is the third one? Then he says, na ghatabhav samanya nityatvat nityeshu api nityatvat upchara cha. So he says there are eternal things also that are spoken of as if they were eternal, they were non-eternal. So right. So he says that often we whenever we are talking about, let us say, space, right? Space. So what is space? Space is what we call avakashat akasha. That is the definition of akasha. Space is something that gives you a place to manifest something. It gives you the area to manifest something. So that space, that is what is other forms of space. There are other forms of space. What are those space? What is that conditioning do? That conditioning creates different forms of space that are there for us to be experienced. So that same thing applies to Atma also. We'll come into that. But if you take the first point, so there is overall, if you look at the universe, then in that way, that space will always is in a way it is considered partially nityam. Space will always be there. But what does the conditioning do to a space? Conditioning does to a space, it makes it appear applicable to certain part, right? So if there is a ghata, there is a pot, then inside that pot, what is that space we call? Ghatakash. In the pot space is called Ghatakash. So that is the conditioned space, right? Ghatakash is the conditioned space. So in that conditioned space, what is happening is that ghata is holding a part of the space. But is the space ever split into parts? It never is split into parts, right? So that is called Ghatakash. Then there is another we call Mahakash, right? So that Mahakash is the overall space that we don't even see. So that is also considered another form of space. Then again, there is what we call Swapnakash. This space that we see around us, which we see in the waking state, is holding ghata means pot, George. Ghata is pot, right? So pot, and inside the pot is the pot space. So ghata, ghatakash. So ghata is pot, ghatakash is the space within the pot, right? So in this way, there is what we call swapnakash also. So the universe that we see, there is a space outside of us, but there is a space inside of us also. Within that space, we can create a lot of universes, infinite universes. So all those universes that we can see outside us, similarly, there are possible universes within us also. So those universes, in what space they are manifest? They are manifest in the Swapnakash, right? And then finally, there is the space of the deep sleep, where nothing can manifest. So that is also there. So in this way, space has also different variations. It has also different classifications, right? So because of that, this space is you can call conditioned. There is a conditioning of space. So what do we say about the Ghatakash? The Ghatakash is also have a shelf life. What is the shelf life? Its shelf life is the same as that of the Ghata. So the pot space has a life. The life of the pot space is the same as that of the pot. The moment the pot breaks, the pot space will merge back into the original space, right? So that is how we understand that Ghatakash can become one with the total space, with the Akasha. So what is that space? That space we say eternal. In that eternal is the non-eternal Ghatakash, the pot space. So Nityeshu Anityam, that is the word is being used in the sutra there. He says there are so many eternal things that we talk about, and those eternal things that we talk about is those eternal things that we talk about. They can also be represented in a way that they are non-eternal, right? So that infinite space, that one space, can also be said to be existing in a finite space as a finite object, right? So in this way, that Ghatakash That Ghatakash is said to be a space which is there in the manifest plane, and that is actually part of the whole space. So we can say Nityeshu Anityam. Within the eternal full space, there is the non-eternal small space. So in this way, he is saying that within eternal objects also there can be non-eternal objects. Right? That same eternal object can be called as non-eternal. Same with the Atma. What is Atma? The total consciousness. The total consciousness of that is running through all beings. But when what happens to that consciousness? It also gets conditioned. It becomes sort of divided. It is not actually divided, but because it is reflecting through our mind, the consciousness that is available to this body is considered as the consciousness belonging to this body only. Right? So that is called the Jivatma. So that there also that conditioned consciousness is said to be non-eternal. The Jivatma is non-eternal. At one time it will definitely attain liberation. So there also he will merge back into the original Atma. So when we are talking about Akasha or Atma, there also in those Nitya Vastus, there is an Anityatvam. Right? So how do we counter these 3 points? That is the job in front of Nyaya. Right? So we'll just move on to the next one. I hope this one is clear. So what are these 3 objections? So just quickly recap. So Ghata Bhav, Samanya and Nityeshu Anitya. So that Ghata Bhav, the absence of the pot or the non-existence of the pot, that is eternal. Then Samanya, the Ghatatvam or the potness is also Nityam. And then in the Nitya Vastu also there is a Anityatvam. So that Nitya Akash also and the Nitya Atma also we can sometimes refer to as Anityam. So what is he saying and what is the reply? So we say Tattva Bhakta Yoho. This is the 16th verse, right? This is the 16th verse, 2 to 16. So what does it say? In reply to the objections, what do we say? Tattva Bhakta Yoho Nanatvasya Vibhaga Vyabhichara. So I think you would also have understood. There is nothing very technical about this. Tattva Bhakta Yoho Nanatvasya Vibhaga Vyabhichara. So he says there is no opposition. If you are saying these things, then actually what is the difference between what is really eternal and what is partially eternal? Because simply you are assuming the partitions to be unreal, whereas the whole is always real, right? Whole is nityam, whole is eternal. So if you are talking about the jarness, so the jarness again belongs to the unmanifest plane, and when it is in the manifest plane, then we say it is there for the person to perceive. So there it is anityam. So when we are talking about sound, what is our position? The manifest sound is non-eternal. That is the position. Clear? So if you are saying about the Ghatatvam, as we said, then again that we are refuting that argument that the Ghatatvam is of course eternal, but when we are talking about the non-eternal part, we are talking about the Ghata only. So we are not talking about the sound which exists in the potential state. We are talking about the sound which exists in the manifest state. Similarly, for we're talking about the if you are saying about this Nitya Vastu, Anitya Vastu, there again what is happening? Vibhaga Vyabhichara. So what is that? A division is being created. And what is that division also? That division also is artificial. That division is produced by wrong knowledge or our mind. So it is a mind which is producing those divisions. Actually, there is no division. Are there multiple spaces? If I tell you that there is a pot outside there and there is space inside that, so can you bring me that space? Can you bring me that space? No, you can't, because that space and the space here is the same. It is not a different space. So you cannot bring me that space, right? So vibhagat vyabhicharaha. Because of the divisions, it is considered to be that eternal object becomes non-eternal or anityam. So when we are talking about sound, then we are also saying that this the sound being manifest in the manifest plane, it is non-eternal, right? Every object in the non-manifest plane is eternal, which I explained in the beginning. So we are talking about the pravahi nityam. Something that is in the unmanifest state will always be one with the actual soul reality. वो उस ब्रह्म के साथ या अस्तित्व के साथ या चेतना के साथ एक ही. It is one with the total existence. The total existence cannot be divided into parts, never, right? So if we are looking at this remote, we are looking at this mobile, then the shape of the mobile is the mobile existence is there, and then there is this remote. There also existence there. So is the existence absent? No, right? Existence is there everywhere in all directions. So when something merges back, when we say something has merged back into non-manifest, then actually it has become one with the existence only. It has become one with the existence. Then you can't say there is two objects. So there it is eternal only, right? So there it is eternal. So we say tattva bhaktayo. If we say from the tattva aspect, from the reality aspect, from the original source aspect, then that nanatvasyam, that multiplicity that we see in the universe is there because of divisions, vibhagas. So vibhagat vyabhichar, because of the divisions, it appears wrong or confusing. Vyabhichar is something that is not correct or not acceptable, or even we say any sin is called vyabhichar. So it is something that is deviating from the argument. So we say there is no deviation from the argument, because if you look at the tattva or the original form of an object, then there is no divisions. And when we talk about the divisions or the vibhagas, then only there is the multiplicity, and there is the division of that object into time slots, and that object becomes manifest or non-manifest. So when it is manifest, then it is again said to be non-eternal, right? So then we look into the next one, 17th sutra. Just give me a minute. Sorry. So looking at another topic, so we'll just bring it up. Yes. So the next sutra is expanding on the argument given in the previous sutra about about when we are talking about vibhag, tattva bhaktayo. So he's expanding a bit more on that when something is that is eternal is given a shape or is divided into parts, then it becomes limited. It loses its nityatvam. It loses its eternal character, right? So that eternality which is there when it is in the non-manifest state, it becomes when it becomes manifest, then it becomes non-eternal. So what does it say? Santananumana visheshana. ta. So if we just split it up, santanat, anuman, visheshanat. So if it is only the things that are cognized by the senses, anuman, belong to a certain genus, that we must say we must be inferred to be non-eternal. So if we can take in a very literal sense, what is santan? Santan is the offspring, the child of someone. So anumanat, visheshanat. So when we are talking about the manifestation of something, then in the human case, what is the manifestation? We have a child, right? So child is a manifestation. So when we are talking about the shabda parampara, the sound, there we use what we call anuman, santanat anuman cha. So what is anuman? It is letting us say that we are in this case that shabda is anityam, right? That is our anumanam, right? So what does the opposition say? He says that this knowledge about jati, the knowledge about the universal sense or the samanya, that is also known through the sense organ, and that is not nityam. So in this way, shabda also is grasped by the sense organ, so it cannot be anityam. So that is his position. So what do we say with that answer? That this that santan, what does it happen? It is produced. Similarly, sound is produced. So that in that way it cannot be nityam. So if I go a bit deep into this, the basic argument that is being said here is that when we are talking about jati, then we can take the same thing about the humanity, human. So humanity is always there. But when we are talking about the child, a baby, so that baby is produced out of some human being, and that baby will have a certain shelf life. So this is an extension of the argument in the previous sutra only. So there, when that santan, it has a similarly it has a shelf life. Then sound also, because it is produced. What is the commonality between sound and santan? Both are produced, right? Both are being produced. So because both are being produced, so we apply anumanam. We apply the same similarity feature to that. So just like sound, a child is produced, he will also die. Similarly, sound is also produced, it will also have an ending. So sound is anityam. So we are saying that just like santan, it is. So the genus will persist, the commonness will persist, the samanyam will persist always, but the samanyam is in the unmanifest state, right? But whenever it comes to the manifest state, it will become something that is subject to birth and decay. In normal, the human body, we say the shad vikaras, the six modifications. Asti jayate vardate viparinamate apakshiyate vinashyati. So these are the six. So I'll not go into that, but the body goes through certain modifications through its lifetime. First it is born, and then finally it dies. So in this way, whenever a child is born, it will, through those 6 modifications, ultimately go back into the elements. Similarly, and because that child was produced, similarly sound is also produced. So sound will also ultimately decay, and that means that sound is having a ending point, right? And therefore it cannot be considered eternal, right? So then we go into the next one. So karan dravyasya pradesh shabda abhidhanat nityeshu vyabhicharat iti. So what does he say? Karan dravyasya. There is something that is called a cause, and there is something that is an effect, right? So if we are talking about mud, we can make different objects about it. Then that what are the different objects that will be made? You can make a pot out of it. You can make a spoon out of it. You can make a katori ko kya bolenge? You can make a small vessel out of it. You can make a plate out of it, and different things. You can create a vase. You can create a box, and different things. So the mud remaining the same, mud is the cause. Karan dravya. So karan dravya is mud, and then what happens? Pradesh shabdena abhidhanat. by virtue of what is said about its area. So when it is given a certain shape, pradesha, it is limited to a certain space. Then that same mud which is always there, mud will always be there, or you can say gold or any other material cause. So when the material cause or the Karan Dravya is there, then that will always be there. But when it is limited to a space, Pradesh Shabde Abhitanat, then Nityeshu Vyabhichar Api. So that Nitya Vastu also undergoes a Vyabhichar, decay, or it deviates from the argument of being eternal. That Nitya Vastu ceases to be eternal. So anything that has taken a shape is there to be considered as non-eternal, right? So what does Shabda, does Shabda have a shape? We cannot see the shape, but it does have a shape. You just try and you can try a small experiment. You can take a small plate. I share a video with this. I saw this somewhere. So if you take a small plate and you scatter some dust on that, and then you take a tuning fork, or you go to a piano and you play a key with that, then the sound waves will arrange that dust into patterns according to its vibration, right? So in this way, this sound can it has a specific shape. Well, how can that space be cognized today? You can map sound waves, right? How does sound travel? It travels as sound waves. So those sound waves have a certain shape. So because it has a shape, it can be grasped, it can be cognized by our sense organs. Our sense organs are incapable of cognizing anything that does not have shape. So whatever is cognized by our eyes, obviously that is the shape we can describe. But whatever is cognized by our other sense organs, that is also because those things also have a certain shape. So all those sounds have a certain shape, all those smells have a certain shape, and so on. So whatever be the Karan Dravya will be eternal, but certain shape, then it goes from Nitya to Anitya. So similarly with what is the Karan Dravya of sound? Sound is like Akash. Sound is a property of Akash. Akash is considered temporarily Nityam, Pravahi Nityam, the term we use, right? So that sense, in the unmanifest Akasha, that sound is eternal. But when it takes up a part of that space, Pradesh Shabdin, when it takes a part of that space, then that sound becomes manifest. Then that sound becomes non-eternal. And that is what we are trying to say clearly through Nyaya, that the manifest sound is non-eternal, right? So clearly the demarcation is there. The unmanifest sound is part of the original reality. It is inseparable from something that you call sound and something that you call Akasha. So there they are both one only. They are non-separable. So there you cannot say it is Anityam. But when does it become Anityam? The moment it is manifest. Why? How? By the any kind of movement, right? So it may be our vocal cords, it might be the beating of a drum, or any kind of clash of two objects. So when any two objects interact or touch or clash, then from that a sound is produced. So that is the logic behind the understanding of sound be Anityam, right? So I think time is up for today. So we will go into the next session, where we will be looking at how sound is non-eternal. Let us assume that there is a parda, there is a what we call avaran. So if there is an avaran, if there is some kind of curtain that is separating the manifest sound from the non-manifest sound, then cannot we understand the continuity of the manifest and the non-manifest as being one object, and in that way can we consider the sound to be the same? Can we consider the unmanifest and the manifest to be the same? This logic we'll examine in the next few verses, right? So we'll wind up for today. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnas पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति।